For those of you unfamiliar, Art Fight is a yearly competition of sorts. Each year, 2 themes are selected, one for each team, and everyone picks their favorite theme. Then everyone uploads their original characters, and on July, the fight begins. People in Art Fight make art of each other's characters, and these are called attacks, and the team gets points for the person's attacks. It's something I've done for 3 years now. This year, I mainly wanted to focus on friends, though I also picked a few people that I just enjoy the work of that I'll talk about later. There are also a few people that I did revenge for, which is basically they attacked me first, and so I counterattacked. Characters of my dear friend Theo. I will also have a zoom in on each piece at the end, because again, this does go by quickly, and I want to make sure that you guys can see some of the details I put in. I was planning on having it edit to sort of pan throughout the entire art as I did each of them, but it turns out that if you do that, the video program kind of decreases the quality of it, so I'll just zoom in and hope you folks will be content with that. Now this year I wanted to try a few different methods. For one thing, I realized that the way Art Fight works with its rules of how much gives how much amount of points, you can do clean sketches instead of full line work and get the same amount of points, so I figured it would be better to focus on that as the end goal rather than to fully line each piece and make it a bit easier on myself. But I did very much give my all into each of the pieces as much as I could. The second thing that I did new this year was a bit of color grading. This is a process in which various light values are assigned different colors, basically, and I put this to different opacities to make the colors blend together in certain ways. Admittedly, a thing that happens with these speed paints is you'll sometimes see layers flicker out of existence. That happens a lot with my work because I'm trying to put things on reference layers that are private, but because those layers are set to private, sometimes I merge things incorrectly. Art Fight also sometimes gives me an excuse to try different types of shading. Most of my shading on my work is soft shading, whereas sometimes I try to go for cell shading, and sometimes I try it and go and go back to soft shading. But it's definitely good as an artist to get out of your comfort zone when it comes to, well, what do you know, art. While we're here, I might as well address a few things. Scribbles and sentiments. I feel like every time I add something to this series, I'm going, I know it's been a while, but again, it has been a while. So for those of you unfamiliar with the series, it's basically speed paints where I try to throw perfectionism out the window a bit. Whether that be just with the fact that I'm going to stutter the hell out of my words while I'm recording my voice, or whether that be that I'm just sketching things that bring me joy and trying not to focus on making everything completely perfect. Art Fight is very much a thing where my perfectionism comes in a little, but it still encourages me to branch out enough and is enough of an exploration of art that I feel justified in putting it in this series every year. Ooh, so the last character was from my dear friend, who I call Killager, and this is from a person that I met on Tumblr. We exchanged some OC info and kind of rambled to each other about various OC designs. I found so many of their OC designs cool, and based on that conversation and the fact that they were on Art Fight, I was like, alright, let's give this a shot. As you can maybe tell, this is a Kirby OC, but it also had a humanoid form, so I figured I'd give a shot at drawing both of them in one picture. And it's so lovely too, because the combination of pastels and dark colors is very much my vibe. I don't know if you can tell from my channel, but that's very much my thing when it comes to color schemes. And I'm also just a sucker for a character that is pastel but absolutely devious. Now, where was I? Ah yes, imperfectionism. The thing with this is my rambling will go back and forth between different points, so let's start with another thing. I usually upload these in August, specifically August 1st, so this is a month late exactly. And yeah, like I mentioned in a post, life has been chaotic lately, so I feel a bit obliged to put some blame on that. There's also just the fact that my brain If I procrastinate on something enough or put something off enough, my brain goes, well, now we can't do that until this day. And then this day comes, and guess what? I'm not going to be able to do it. So that happened until basically today, although I did try to get a little bit done throughout the month of August at a time, so that I could, tackle it today and not have to wear myself out completely. I just had the speed paint already laid out. I had this lovely gradient in the background with all the lovely little particles and clouds that go around it, and I had the music selected so that I could just focus on recording and rambling the sentiments and scribbles. Oh, would you look at that, roll credits. That last character, by the way, this last character, this one, hi, that last one was a character of Theo's again, because he did amazing work of one of my characters. I was just like, alright, I'm going to get you back now. And this one is another revenge attack. Now, this one is interesting to me because these are two Pokemon OCs, and, a previous one I did, Killagers, was also Pokemon-based, but I found this one interesting because these took designs from the game and altered them a bit. Like, the Tepig line is something that in the original game I didn't pay much attention to, but I liked the deviations that this person did to them. And this person just, again, did such lovely art of my characters that made me just so joyful, and maybe because my friend's like, oh my god, look at this, oh my god, look at them, I love them! And so I had to strike back with something that had the same vibes to it. I love the idea of one of the characters carrying another of the characters, especially when I found out the personalities of these two, where one was very much kind of bubbly and optimistic, and the other sort of looked to be somewhat snarky and a bit more like she held herself together in a certain way, and I just love the dynamic so much, so I wanted to go into that. It was also interesting drawing fire, I will say. Fire is something that I sometimes have a hard time putting into my art style. Oh, this one. Hi Soulmation, since I know you watch my videos. Hello, how are you doing? I hope you are enjoying yourself and having a good day. Soulmations, who is the owner of the character that I'm drawing, is absolutely lovely. I met them on, a Lethal Company streams, which by the way, you should check out the Lethal Company streams. I make an absolute mess of myself in the process, and just, you get to see and hear from some of my friends, and it's just an absolutely fun time. But I met them there, and then they did fan art of the guy in my icon, and I was like, oh my god! And they did an attack on me, so it's just more motivation. It's like, alright, I'm going to get you now. So I found a character of theirs that I just absolutely love the design of, because for one thing, moth, I love moths enough to partially name myself after them. And for another thing, purple. Love purple so much. Again, I don't know if you could tell. The fun thing with posing, of course, was the multiple arms, and the wings, of course, I had a bit less trouble with, but the arms were so interesting to think about how they overlap and how a person with multiple arms might work with them to embellish on their points. Like, I wanted this character to have sort of a, you see sort of pose, a pose where they look to be explaining something, and so I thought about the various gestures that I would make when explaining something and how I might cross a hand over, or cross my arms, or display outward, and things like that. Oh, and this next one. Ooh. So another thing with this year is I led poses with the arms a lot, because I had very specific things in mind for the arms, and sort of drew the rest from there, sort of like a line of motion sort of thing, where I was leading with what I wanted to be the focal point. And this character, the owner of this character I met through writing I do, actually, on another account, and I was so honored. They kind of did fan art for my writing, and I was just freaking out about it, and then I found out they were on Artfight, and I think you can see where I'm going from here. It was actually super fun, because once I submitted this and they saw it, they went, wait, you draw? And I went, yeah! So that was a lovely experience. But another thing about this is it's where I branched into lineless. Now, lineless is something that I have dabbled in before, and it's not something out of my repertoire by any means, but it has been a while since I've done it, and you know, it takes a lot of effort, but when I looked at all the textures that were involved with this character, I figured it would just do so much justice to have the character be done in a lineless format, and to be honest, I think maybe lining this would have been harder. Now, the image I had for this character, or pose, format, whatever you may call it, is these various miasmas of eyes and mouths that they had in their character revs sort of taking up half of them, sort of blending into their body. Oh, into his body, rather, I should say. This is Goliath, and he is so cool. I really like his design. Just... yes! But this is very much a point where I was branching into body horror, which, by the way, the timestamp at the bottom of the screen, I should put that there so you can make sure to skip to another portion if you are perhaps not a fan of body horror. Rambling can sometimes get me off track, so apologies. If you are watching this and not just listening to this, it will be at the bottom of the screen. But if you're just listening to this, then congratulations, you don't have to worry about that. Drawing this amount of body horror did make me realize that I kind of want to draw body horror more often. It's such a fun thing to get into, and as someone who considers themselves a bit of a horror fan, I'm surprised I don't get into it more often than I do. I do branch into it for a few things, but those things don't happen often enough where I can say that I do it frequently. And most of them are with Melody. When and if I decide to branch into things again, it will probably be with Melody again, though I should perhaps branch into different characters when it comes to body horror because I feel it would be so fun. Speaking of the future, I should tell you guys about what I'm planning to do in the future. So in fact, I do have some vocal covers lined up. Some of them I've already recorded and such. It's just a matter of making some art or putting something together to get them out into the world. And a few other things. I have some original songs that I've been working on that, again, need art before they're out in the world. And yeah, I'm so excited, honestly. September is going to be an interesting month because I try to work by a bit of a theme for each month sometimes, and September I don't really have much of a theme in mind. I'm just going with the flow and vibes. That was kind of the case for August as well, where I was mostly focusing on a few vocal covers that I had in the queue. But, you know, September I'm going in with that intention, so it will be kind of relaxing in a way. October, I will be back into the theme of things, which will be spooky and such. I have a few things in mind. There will be some Hollow Knight covers, which may delight a few of you, and also a few other generally spooky vocal covers and original lyrics. I'm actually debating remastering an old song for the season. And there's a few song drafts that I might pull out that have that spooky vibe, just for, again, the season. I don't know if you can tell, but I really like October. Making a bunch of spooky things is just my way of celebrating that I've done for the past few years. Courting for the future is going to be interesting because, like I said, life has been a bit chaotic lately. For one thing, employment. Employment has been something that I've really rolled myself into, so that means a bit less of the schedule is going to be devoted to this. Anyone who has work, I'm sure, can understand it. While this is lovely, it's not always a break. It's something that I take a lot of pride in, it's something that I do genuinely enjoy a lot of the time, but it's not always relaxing, and sometimes that is in fact what I need. But rest assured, I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. Any breaks that I take will be temporary. I am not going to give up on this yet. To be honest, when I see folks say that I'm underrated and stuff like that, I just, you know, it's very heartwarming that people can see the amount of work that I put into this and think that I deserve more love for it. That is the thing where my work is sporadic when it comes to upload schedules and things like that, so anyone who does subscribe to me, I think, would inevitably have to get used to that, but again, I'm very flattered and honored that there are people who have stuck around. Ooh, this goes back into my love of characters who are purple and have light colors to them. But this one has an interesting element to it in that I added a harp. It was interesting looking up various harp players basically as a way of photo references because I wanted to make sure I had the hand movements accurate, I wanted to make sure I had the harp itself be accurate, so there was a lot of that going into this. because this player does in fact play a harp, and I just thought that would be so interesting to work with. This is another revenge attack. The person who owns this character did art of one of my characters, and it was interesting searching through and picking one of the characters to go with. Oh, I should ask, would you folks like more speed paints? Because I have a few things in mind. There are some things that I've debated just posting without any voiceover, because I feel they are pretty interesting pieces. But, you know, I would love some community input, because all these videos are kind of for you guys in a way. You may have heard the phrase, make art for yourself, and that is somewhat the case for me. I do make what I make for partially a living, though it's not exactly sustainable right now. But in terms of posting things and sharing things, that is partially for myself because it builds my confidence, but it is partially for you folks as well. Which just adds to my gratitude that you folks have stuck around. Really, really, I appreciate it. Whew, okay, a relevant topic that I'm jumping to, but another thing I'll be glad for in October is for it to be less hot. My goodness, I am not a summer fan in the slightest, and I am sweating where I am recording. Things being cold might actually motivate me to record more because I won't have to worry about being warm while I'm recording. Headphones kind of add to that a bit, as you might imagine, and whew, it's just a lot to deal with. I'm the kind of person with things who plans months in advance when it comes to the future, and that can be both to my advantage and to my detriment, because I do get a bit too ambitious sometimes, and sometimes life gets a bit chaotic, and sometimes things get out of my control. But I think I'm looking forward to the future and what I have in mind, so we'll see where it goes. Ooh, this character. Now this is another lovely case, well, extremely lovely case, where this person I did an attack on the first year I did art fight actually, and then they did an attack on me back, and this year they actually attacked me first, and I was just like, oh my goodness, hey, great to see you again, in a way. So I chose one of the characters and made art of him as well. He was lovely because I like the color palette of this character combined with the attitude of this character. He seems to sort of be deadpan and like he doesn't really want to be bothered by anybody, so I wanted to really embody that in this work. I also did a thing here where I went somewhere between soft shading and cel shading for here, where I painted more in brush strokes than general areas like I usually do. I've done this a few times in the past, nothing that I've done a speed paint for, I think. It's more something that I keep to lineless work, but sometimes I make it work with line work and sometimes blend into the lines so that it's a more cohesive piece, and I've loved when I've done it. It really works out, I feel. But it was just super delightful to see that person again. And this looks to be the last attack. Now, admittedly, I feel a bit bad because this one, I was in a bit of a rush to get out. This was something I was working on during the final days of Art Fight, and I had a very specific pose in mind, as you can see here, so I was trying to find references to make sure that anatomically things worked out and things like that, but I didn't really find what I was looking for, so I just kind of went, alright, let's just do it. Let's just dive right in, straight from the brain, right to the page. Surely nothing can go wrong. It did mean that I had a bit less time to make sure that all the colors were accurate, and I didn't really get much time to shade. I put a slight gradient on things as somewhat pseudo-shading, but it wasn't really as completed as perhaps I would have liked. This is another revenge case where the person did an attack on my character first, so I really wanted to make sure that I did something for them in return, but at least they were happy with it, and I think in that case I can be happy with it as well. Maybe next year I'll make something more fully fledged and really take them by surprise, because I know I can really do something that blows people away. And this was another case where I was trying to keep in mind the personalities of the characters. The character in the middle is really bubbly and friendly with people, whereas the two other characters not so much. So I wanted to interlace that in. And with that, I think we're about to the final pieces, or view of the pieces. So here are all the pieces in order, zoomed in so you can see a few of the details. You can't see every part of these because, again, the video program reduces the quality when I zoom in and pan, whereas if I just zoom in like this, then you can see things a bit better. I hope you folks have enjoyed. If nothing else, I've been told that these are relaxing, so perhaps you can put this on in the background, or perhaps you enjoyed the art. Either way, in the future, in the next coming days, I will be working on getting some songs out for you folks, because that is my main repertoire of sorts. And yeah, thank you so much. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And by share, I do in fact mean share this with other people. You can link this video to your friends if you like. It really helps me out as a creator. And if you're curious, the owners of the characters will be linked in the description. I admittedly neglected to do that in previous years, but I wanted to make sure I did it this year because these artists are just so cool. Next year, I suppose I'm looking forward to it, which is interesting to think about. I don't know if I've ever had that feeling with Art Fight where I'm like, alright, let's do it. But it's an absolute delight. Thank you so much. See you next time.